Good evening and welcome back to the MG Community Podcast, streaming live tonight, Tuesday, the 7th of February, 2023. And if it's not too late, a good new year to Ainana. We'll discuss all MG electrical vehicles, hoping to inform and entertain you for about an hour or so. I'm Dave Stewart, Dave S on the forum, and I currently drive the new style ZS long range. And joining us this week from Wigan, Les Burrows.
Hi everybody, I'm Les Burrows from Wigan. Same name on the forum. Currently driving an MG4 SE and the new MG5 facelift model.
Brilliant. Oh, well, we'll certainly be picking up with you a lot, Les, on the running order. Joining us from Swindon is Vince. Hello, Vince.
Hi everybody. ZSCV, Mark 2.
Is Vince. Hello. Sounds coming. And sorry about that, Vince. Joining us from Essex is Barry. Hello, Barry.
Good evening, everyone. Barry H on the forum. Currently driving the red ZS seen behind me.
Yeah, great. And from the Charlie Group MG in England, Innovation Development Manager, Miles Roberts. Hello, Miles.
Hi everyone, Miles Roberts CG on the forum, and currently not driving an MG. I'm currently in a Nissan Aria, but I have driven all of the MGs.
Brilliant. As we always kick off with, if you're watching live, thank you for joining us, and please click on the like button and join in the discussion in the chat window. And a couple of the topics today, we'll be looking quite closely at the chat window to see what feedback we're getting. If you're watching later, then thank you for joining us and choosing to watch the video. And please subscribe and get a notification for when we next go live. Quite a few things to cover in tonight's podcast. We're going to be discussing some of the software fixes released by MG and some of the issues we've had with the MG4 since it was launched, and some of the non-software issues as well, the oil leak and the bulging tray. Les will no doubt be giving us an update on that. We'll also be looking at the availability of new orders, and we'll be relying heavily on Miles for an update on that one. And indeed, some folk have seen some leaked photos of Miles is going to correct me, the Cyberstar?
It's called a Cyberstar, but it might be changing its name to the MGC on launch in the UK, hopefully.
Oh, right. And we'll be throwing it open to the community to say what you think is an EV roadster in the UK, a sensible option. And then to finish off, we'll be having a look at battery management because of the different types of batteries and things. Thought it'd be quite good to get a wee bit of advice about what we should or shouldn't be doing with the various types of batteries. So I hope there's enough to entertain you and inform you in that. So, Vincent, are you okay? Are you still with us?
I think I've sorted out the sound now. I'm sorry about that, but
and remind me, Vince, you're driving what car?
Okay, I've got I started off with the ZSCV Mark 1 and I parked that for a Mark 2. Had the Mark 2 now long range since March last year. So I got one of the first ones in March last year. So plenty of miles under my belt and plenty of experience with that.
Perfect. Okay, thanks. And good to see you back again. So if we can just please kick off, if we look at the various software releases and an update on where we are with MG4's history since launched. So maybe I'll look at Miles first just for the updates, and then throw it open to Les maybe as well about MG4 experiences.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, as is sod's law with a lot of new vehicle launches, they find niggles after the car's been delivered, or after it's gone to already, across the water from China. So we've had a couple of different things. The most serious one probably is one which has resulted in a recall, which has been logged with the DVSA, and that's where the vehicles were sometimes deadlocking whilst the car was switched on, and then it basically meant that you couldn't unlock the doors and it wouldn't respond to the key fobs or anything useful like that, so you had to climb out the boot. The recall was logged with the DVSA. The customers who have been affected by that should have been contacted from the 7th of January onwards. As is typical with these things, it is literally just a software update and it fixes it. It's not a mechanical fault with the vehicle, it's just some software that was playing up. So that's a fix that's gone through. But yeah, obviously not great for the people who were affected. I think there was a small number of people who were actually affected to it that led obviously to the full recall. In terms of other things, obviously we've previously spoken about the diff oil leak on the rear motor of the MG4. That's got a different part which they're retrofitting to affected vehicles. I wish that they would do that more proactively. Up until now, I think basically due to a restriction on the amount availability of parts, they were only fitting that part to cars which had displayed the fault and as in were actually leaking. They weren't proactively fitting them to cars until they'd shown that they were leaking, which from our point of view as a dealer is a real issue, because often the cars weren't seen to be leaking until they'd driven a few hundred miles. Well, if that few hundred miles is once they've taken it away from the dealership back down to London, in my case, we've sold cars from Burnley, they've gone down to the south of the UK, and then they're calling us up the day after and saying it's leaking on my driveway, and you say, well, unfortunately, because it wasn't leaking on PDI, because it wasn't leaking at handover, MG wouldn't let us swap it. And they won't let us order the part unless we've submitted a warranty claim for it. So that was the issue. We couldn't get the parts without the warranty claim. The warranty claim wouldn't be accepted without photos of the actual VIN number and everything. So, faff. There have been some further software updates for the I'm just trying to find it here, and the driver monitoring system. So the distraction warning and the fatigue warning. So basically the camera on top of the MG4 trophy steering wheel cowl, that was described by many people, myself included, as being too sensitive. It's probably a fair way to say it, in that if you glanced at the speedo whilst
Sound.
No, we've lost Miles.
Is that me?
Don't think that's. No, Miles, you're definitely on mute somehow. So
You're
So-
showing mute on the screen.
yeah,
I'll
That's
trying a different microphone now.
That's
That's it now. Yeah.
Does it sound okay? Sorry, for some
You're
reason
back on.
well, it's a different microphone. My USB microphone had failed.
it's a software problem you had there, Miles.
This is the wonders of my fancy blue snowball microphone's broken. So I was just saying, so the distraction warning system was too sensitive. Basically, if you glanced away from the road, if you looked down at the speedo, or if you looked at the radio in the center console, it would say that you were distracted and you weren't looking at the road. So that's been reconfigured to basically turn down the sensitivity of that software. It still works, but it's now being not quite so much like the Stasi in how it interrogates you for how much attention you're paying. And what else have we got?
And are these all on the 4, Miles?
These are all for the MG4, yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
these were all things which have been solved in the since it came out. Les, could you give me an update if you think you've missed any there? That
The only thing you've missed at the moment is the under tray, which is badly buckled on a lot of vehicles. Not every vehicle, but some are worse than others. And that was, when I got the car, I was promised that was going to be fixed. And then I was told nearly 3 weeks ago now, just over 3 weeks ago, that it ain't going to be fixed. It's not going to be touched. So it's not a safety issue, so it won't be altered. That's what I was told. And that was
yeah,
3
I'm
weeks,
trying
3
to
weeks ago.
update myself on that. I will need to double check on that. I believe that it's.
And the other one is the lane key to assist on the MG Pilot, which literally just snatches the wheel out your hand when it's switched on.
That has been updated to fix. So there is a software
Well,
update for that.
I haven't had it yet.
So if
Not
you go,
yet.
if you're going, so if you're due to go back in to get,
I went 3 weeks ago and I spent all afternoon there to be told at the end of it. I went to get the safety recall for the door locking thing done.
yeah,
And I told them about the under tray again while I was there. And then after about 3 hours, 3.5 hours, something like that, a couple of cups of coffee, I was told that they was unable to do the software update for the door locking. It couldn't be done because they had a problem with the computers. And the tray on the underside wasn't going to be altered in any way, shape, or form. I was told then that they've also found an oil leak, which I never knew I had because I've been watching for this oil leak quite carefully since I've had the car, and I've never seen it. It's parts in the same place every day, and I never seen any oil on the floor. And I've looked under the car quite regularly, and I've not seen no oil. But I
I
was
guess
told
they must
I've
have
got an oil
obviously,
leak.
if they've had it on the ramp and they've looked underneath and
Yeah, well,
perhaps
that's
taken
not.
the other tray off, might
I don't know how
send
bad
that
it is. I've not seen it. And what they said was they've had to take pictures, etc., and send them off to MG to enable to get some parts and fix it. And they'll be in touch when it comes in.
Now, you've got the 5 as well, haven't you? So
Yeah, I've got the 5 as well.
yeah,
Got the
I'm what I'm seeing there on the chat list is it Toro Radnev says that a number of people have had problems with locking on the 5 as well.
First I've heard of it, Barry.
Right.
No, there's a thread on there, and I think it is basically there's the passenger side front door. The handle moves and it opens okay from the outside. It's not deadlocking. It's like the software's not allowing it to unlock on the front.
This is a different issue than what the 4 is, isn't it? On the 4 you can't open any doors. This is just one door that they've had a problem with. Yeah, I've heard that.
It's basically it's acting as if there's like a child lock on it, and there isn't. But
you've got to pull the angle twice for it to operate. It won't operate unless you pull it twice.
If the doors are locked, if the doors are self-locked whilst you're driving, you need to do two pulls.
You do two pulls on the angle to open it.
Yeah, that's a safety feature, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's the same on the ZS as well. Yeah,
and it's the same on the 4 as well. I think they're all the same.
Yeah, it's a safety locking. Once the things have locked on the auto locking, you needed 2 pulls to release it or turn the car off.
That's right. And when you set off with the car at about 5 or 6 miles an hour, you let it go cluck, cluck, locks, and then you've got to do them 2 pulls to get the doors open.
Yeah. You can disable that auto locking, can't you? You can disable it in the settings if you.
I've not seen nothing, buddy. I'll be honest with you. I've looked and I've not seen nothing. Not in ours anyway.
On the ZS, I think you can.
Maybe the ZS you may be able to. I don't know. On the 4, I've not been able to see one. The only thing we've had an issue with the 4 with the doors, in actual fact, was the fact that one of them wasn't closing properly. But that's been sorted out. That's okay. I
had that with my ZS, and
every time I set off, it was on the dash door open. One of the back doors. I think
it was the passenger front door. Mine,
and every time I got out to look at it, it was okay.
Yeah, the dealer had a go at adjusting it, and then when I collected the car, he had adjusted it, but the door wasn't straight anymore. It was kicked out the bottom, so he then adjusted it. I took it back again a second time and adjusted it, and then it ended up that it was kicked out all the way along. So I go above about 40 miles an hour, and there's a slight whistle for the door, and it's in for service 2 weeks time, 3rd service. So I'm going to ask them to sort that out again. But they told me that it was adjusted as best they could. But it's about I suppose about 5 millimeters sticks out passenger door. So the gaps don't align properly.
Yeah.
So.
Here's a confusing one, guys. We've had 2 texts, and one saying that auto lock is not disableable on a 4, and then the next one saying that it is available. So, Miles, you got your homework.
I've not seen nothing.
I honestly can't remember. I mean, the trouble is, I'm not driving any of the MGs on a regular basis. I have driven them all before, but I can't remember between each model as to what the difference is.
Don't think you can.
It's like I had somebody call me the other day and say, I get a lot of queries which are the same, which is okay because I remember those, sort of button presses to go through. But when I get something like that, it's like I'd have to go, hunt for myself. I just noticed I'm reading through the comments here. I'm just seeing that I saw DK says he's constantly getting airbag warnings on his car. Well, DK, if that's the case, you're going to need to take the car into the dealership. An airbag warning system, it could be something like a loose connection on one of the seat airbags.
Yeah.
Or it could be something else, but it needs investigation under warranty because obviously that's a safety thing. You know, it's not a common thing that isn't that. I don't know anyone else talk about that, and certainly none of our customers have ever reported that. So if you're getting airbag warnings on the car, book your car in ASAP, because the last thing you want is your airbags not to work when you need them to. Ian Anderson says, on the forum today, someone posted a reply from NCAP about the aggressiveness of the lane keep assist, and that they're working with MG about this.
Yeah, it's dangerous.
I was told that there's a software update on lane keep assist available, so if I need to double check that with the workshop if they've actually implemented that yet. It should be an actual software update that fixes how severe it is.
The problem with these software updates, Miles, is the amount of time it's taking to do them. I mean,
as a dealer ourselves, the problem that we've got is that we can book the car in, but if the server goes down in China, or if MG decide that they're going to turn off access for a bit whilst they reload another update onto the system, it can just extend it. Sometimes, so we could say to you it'd be half an hour, and they could literally do 3 updates in half an hour, or we can be there just batting our heads against the wall, just waiting for it to load, and it's not ideal, but it's not, unfortunately, it's sort of out of our hands because it's like doing a Windows update.
Yeah, I understand that, Miles, but wouldn't it make sense? You've got all these recalls. Let's say, for example, you've sold 1,000 MG4s. They're all going to have to come back in because of the recall. They're all going to have to come back in. Surely to God, there should be some server somewhere that can provide enough information to do that at least. I mean,
right. So the thing is, Les, is that each car connects to the server itself individually and does the updates one by one. We don't have we can't sort of download all the updates onto the laptop and then just download it from the laptop onto several cars.
Oh, well, I don't know.
Every car we have to connect to has got, because they might all have slightly different versions of software.
It does seem to be taking a long time to get anything done. I mean, the oil leak that you talked about a few minutes ago, there's I think there's about 2,500 comments on the forum about that at the moment. Around about 2,500 people have complained. Not 2,500 people, sorry. There's 2,500 comments on the forum. Some of them, a lot of them from the same people, myself included. They're all there. But this forum is going on and on and on and on, and it's just 2,500 now. It's ridiculous. That should have been started.
I know. And I think the problem is as well is that, like I said, there is 2,500 comments, but there might be.
And the other thing with
300 affected cars out of that, and so from MG's point of view, they go, okay, well, we've had 350 reported instances of this oil leak, and we've supplied 7,000 cars so far. So from their point of view, they're like, well, that's that's sort of 5% of our supplied vehicles. So is it as big an issue as it's been made out on the forum? So that's it doesn't help us. It doesn't help MG if people complain on the forum but don't take the car to the dealer and the dealer doesn't log it. If there's any of these issues,
but how many people have been to the dealer and had the so-called fitted, and it's not worked? It's still leaking. There's several people. One today in particular. He's been this morning and had his car looked at again. He's had the breather changed and he's had the oil level reduced to stop it leaking. Well, I don't agree with that, reducing oil levels. Whoever designed that car, they said it had to have so much oil in it. That was what it needed. And now they started this in the first place, reducing the oil to stop the oil leak. Then they decided they was going to change the breather. How far are we going to go with this before we finally get this oil leak fixed? One way or the other. It's got to be fixed.
We've had some cars which were initially supplied with the changed breather, sent out, road tested, and found to be leaking again. And we found it was a fault with the hose clip, basically, that was used to connect this breather onto the thing. So we've changed that and we've reported that back to MG. So I think that possibly some of the issues could be that the first supplied hose clip wasn't up to scratch or whatever, and that they've had to change it since. But obviously, until the dealers report that back to MG as being an issue, they're not going to know. If they could have sent out 150 kits in a day, we're the first people that day to start it. But we don't report it until say lunchtime, by which point there's already another 20 or 30 other. And if they don't do a road test and look back under it again, they're not going to know. So it comes down to the testing the fault, doesn't it, from the actual dealer
Yeah,
reports?
I agree with you entirely. But it just seems to be taking so long to get anything sorted. And actually said, right, that is it. We're doing that. That's fixed. Everybody car, as you said at the beginning, they should be saying, right, all the cars we've sold, we found the fix, get them all in, we'll cure it now. And it's done with.
Well,
But no, they don't do that.
I had a course to go into my dealer last week and arrange about the service, and I had a chat with them about that. And I said, what's actually happening? You know, what's your experience of these MG4s? And he said to me, well, we've had 100% that we've had to fix, because we do a very thorough PDI. We take each car up the road. We've got a circuit we take it on. We do about 15 miles road test on it, and we see we get a leak. We book it. We do the fix before the customer gets it. And he said they've only had one occasion when there's been a problem subsequent to that fix being applied. And so they said the fix is, if you do the fix properly, it's fine, it works. And the problem is that I think that MG haven't acknowledged that it's an issue that should be part of the PDI thing, is just to change it from the outset. So, you know, letting the customers do the quality control is not good. It really is not good news.
No, I agree fully. I agree, and I think it's. But unfortunately, as a dealer, our hands have been sort of tied in that we can't order the bits until we've put the warranty.
Oh, exactly.
I think that's terrible, that, Miles, quite honestly. They know there's a problem. They should be sending you the kits and saying, there you are, fit them as you need to. I think it's terrible. I feel sorry for the dealers, I'll be quite honest here. But the fact that they've got he told me last week, we've had to take several pictures and other information and send it to MG to get the part to fix your car. I think that's diabolical, quite honestly. Really
isn't it the case that that they've said that this is something that has to be done at the supplying dealer? So as you were saying, Miles, someone's taken a car down to London that's bought it from you. They've got to bring it back again, and then what are you saying?
No, that's not been the case for us.
It's not been the case, right?
It's a warranty issue, isn't it?
It's a warranty issue. You don't have to take it back to supplying dealer. Right. As long as they are an MG dealer, it's fine. I'm just looking through some of the other comments, see if there's anything else that we can answer at the moment. We've had a question about why we're not talking about software problems on the Marvel R. Well, frankly, Wolfgang, I'm really sorry. We just don't have any experience in the UK of the Marvel R.
No, we haven't
sold it. We would very much like some of our Norwegian or Dutch,
Swedish, whatever,
and talk about the Marvel R. And if there are issues, please do talk to us about them. But it's not sold in the UK, and unfortunately, I'm an MG UK based dealer, so I don't have any experience with that. And I can't. It wouldn't be fair for me to try and guess about what the issues could be.
Well, we all think it looks pretty marvelous anyway, doesn't it? It looks fantastic.
Yeah, and possibly I can talk about some news actually coming later. With regards to what else was there? Wolfgang's from Germany. Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Also, lock is available on the MG4 Trophy, but not on the SE. Okay.
As a ZS driver, sorry, Liz?
No, also locks on my car. Mine's an SE. It just locks. Whether you can switch it off on the trophy.
Whether you can switch it, maybe that's what it means. Maybe
that's what it means. You can switch it off on the trophy. I don't know. I know our doors lock. When we set off, you can hear them clunk, clunk, and that's it. They're closed. They're locked. And
it's a safety feature, isn't it?
Of course it is, yeah. Yeah, it's a safety feature. Lots of cars do it. My friend has a Peugeot 3008, and his wife wanted to take it back because she was fed up with trying to open the door, because that you had to pull twice, and she could not get used to pulling the angle twice. How stupid can you get? But I mean, that was it. She wanted to take it back.
I'm thinking about saying, Les, though, if the car's switched off, the doors
then they'll open.
It's just if it's still in ready mode, that then you've got to do it twice.
Absolutely.
I guess
the computer doesn't know any difference if it's still switched on. It's still switched on, so it's not going to do anything different.
Yeah.
But it's just irritating and annoying that you've got to wait all this time for little things that they know need fixing, and you're waiting and waiting and waiting. And Well, I don't know how long it's going to be now before I get a phone call to get it come and fetch it in again. I've not a clue. But when it goes in, hopefully they'll get it right this time. But we'll see anyway.
Well, whilst we're speaking about warnings coming up, and I'm looking to Vince here for a bit of backup on the ZS, and there's a spoiler alert coming up here. On a sunny day, and you're all going to say in the north of Scotland, what the hell are you talking about, Dave? On a sunny day, is everybody else getting a regular warning that the camera can't be detected?
Yeah, you get that. There's a warning about that in the manual. If the sun's directly in front of you, blinding the camera, and the windscreen might be slightly dirty or just something, it's like yourself looking through a lens directly at the sun. It all splays out. The camera can't see anything. The computer can't make anything of it. So it's a safety warning to say don't depend on the camera functionality. Really, so I've had that. But as soon as you go around the corner, 30 seconds later, it resets itself and it's okay.
Yeah, I get that with mine. If I'm going out for my early morning walk and I'm sort of driving east towards the sea wall, the sun just gets in it, and it's just like getting the sun in your eyes. And the car says, "Look, I don't rely on
me. Yeah.
what I'm seeing." Yeah,
Which I get, but it constantly it clears itself as life saves, but then just a few seconds later, up it comes again. You're thinking, okay, even a technical person like myself, can gather that it's not working just now. You don't have to keep telling me that you're not working, but
all these systems are there to help, not replace, aren't they? You know, at the end of the day, you've got to keep your eye on what you're doing. It's as simple as that.
I must admit, Dave, on mine, it's happened. I can count it on one hand the number of times it's happened in 12 months for me, anyway, on my ZS. So it's different, but
you're further north, you see, Dave, and therefore the sun is always going to be lower for a lot of the part of the year, isn't it?
yeah.
Yes.
Just the geography of it. You move down south, and then you'll get sunny days, and the sun's up in the sky rather than just over the horizon.
Excuse me, Mr. Hagan, it's a good time to. I was in England last week, down in York, and thank you for all the forum members.
York, that's only part way down.
There was folk. It was so warm. There's folk running around with just one anorak on. Yeah, no, mine comes up repeatedly, like in a long journey to York or something. It'll come up 10 times or so. You're like, my wife laughs because, oh, your camera's not working. So it comes up repeatedly, just constantly, time after time. So, and as you say, like, I know it's a safety assist. The one that always does get me is when you put it in reverse and says, please let nothing distract you. Although you've got this thing coming up saying, please let nothing distract you. I think, well, I was distracted by that momentarily. But, so there's quite a lot of comments coming in about issues similar to that. Les, I think I'd be right to say there's been quite a lot of traffic on the forum about the software faults, etc., hasn't there?
Oh, a lot, hell of a lot. The oil leak problem and the under tray problem they're not issues that stops the car driving. I believe MG's actually said you can carry on driving whether it's leaking oil or it's not leaking oil. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know, but that's what I've been told and that's what I've read. But I don't agree with what they're doing about it. I honestly don't agree with it at all. They should be getting this in and getting it sorted because it's going to affect sales on that vehicle. There's no ifs. I know for a fact there's at least 2 or 3 people, as I know of personally, who have returned the vehicle and said, I don't want it. I want my money back. They took it back. They don't want it because there's certain things that's wrong with it. Either with one chap, took it back because he thought the seats was a waste of time. Personally, I've not felt much with the seats. They're okay. They're not brilliant, but they're okay. He took it back because they were selling them. He gave him a new car, and that was the same. I don't know. I don't know what's that about. But the under tray situation, there's so much variation in that. Some's got half an inch, some's got 3 inches. I've got a great big bulge in the middle of mine, right in the middle, great big bulge, and it looks as though, I don't know, if it was thick snow, it'd probably scoop it up. So it needs sorting out, one way or the other. I mean, I pointed it out the day I picked the car up from the showroom. That I said, I can't see any oil, but I could see a massive bulge. And it was chucking it down with rain, but I had a quick look. There was a massive bulge underneath it, and I was told it will be sorted. But up to now, we've heard nothing more about it. But anyway, it's I'm not too worrying about it in the respect it's not stopping me driving the car, stopping the wife driving the car, I should say. No, it's not doing that. But it's it needs something. It needs to be done, one way or another. I don't know how they're going to do it, but we'll see.
Miles, can I ask you a question about vehicle to load?
Give it a go, yeah.
Okay, so I've connected my vehicle to load to my house to a separate circuit on my house. So in the event of a power failure, I can have the lights on, etc., etc. But I haven't had any software updates for vehicle to load. It all works fine, provided you've got the car running. So this is a ZS. Provided the car's in running mode, it all works fine and acts as a backup on my house lights. So is there an update, a software update for vehicle to load that you know of?
There's a software update for the MG ZS EV that allows you to start the car with vehicle to load, to set the discharge and everything.
Yeah.
Start it running, and then you can turn the car off, and it'll continue doing the discharge, so it won't have your lights and everything on.
Okay.
So there is an update for that.
That's what the MG4
which will get it. That'll mean that you can do that then when you're when it's in the next service to apply that. It's not a update that you can sort of demand that the dealer does for free. The thing is, it's not a safety issue. It's not so for the dealer, they'll do that when they next do a service on your car. But if you ask them to do it otherwise, and they've got to spend half an hour with a laptop on your car, they won't paying for it.
Yeah. Okay. My service is due in 4 weeks time on my ZSEV, so I've nearly had it a year. So I can just ask my dealer, and he should know.
Just remind them to check that, if there's any updates for your car. They should do it as a matter of course, but just ask them to double check that they've done all the updates. And if you want to specify that particular one, you can do.
Brilliant. Thanks for your advice, Miles.
Perfect. So
instantly the vehicle to load thing, I guess, works quite well at the moment with these last few weeks we've had people being paid to switch off their electric or reduce their electric usage at peak times. That's quite a good usage of the massive storage battery that people have.
I've not used it yet, but I've tested it when I first got it because I bought the cable when I bought the car, and I tested it when I got it home, and it works fine. It works absolutely fine. No problem.
Yeah, so I've got a house battery as well, and that's got an emergency power supply. So in the event of a power failure, it can power certain circuits in the house up to 2.5 kilowatts. And all I've done, I've had the vehicle to load wired in as an input to that, so I can take the vehicle battery to run those same circuits, and that works really well actually. So
yeah, it's good.
No, that's good. I've got the Tesla Powerwall myself, and that's limited to 5 kilowatts output. But it works well. We've had a couple of power cuts. They're doing some building work on the estates near our house, and there's been a couple of times where they've had faults with the cabling due to a digger interference, should we say. And it has worked very well in those times. So yeah, I appreciate it. I think that it's a good idea to have, you've got these 70 kilowatt hour plus battery packs. It makes sense to
use it.
My Powerwall's only 13, so it's makes sense to have the vehicle to load and have it in an application like you've already got set up. It sounds perfect.
Yeah, it works really well.
Yeah, because with the Tesla gate, you've got the gateway, haven't you, with the Tesla battery?
Yeah, so I can come off the grid completely, even if there's not a power cut, if I so wished. And a good thing about it is that my solar panels can continue to feed as well, which I know that isn't the case with some of the battery setups. If there's a power cut, that then it stops everything really. But
this is where I miss our good old pal Stuart Whitman, because he would be looking every bit as vague as I am at the moment. Again, what the hell are they talking about?
Well, you've got the facility on your car, haven't you, Dave, for vehicle to load? Sure.
I've got what? I've got that facility.
Yeah.
Yes.
The cable.
Get yourself a cable, get it done.
Yeah.
And thank you all. I went out after the last podcast and checked, and I do have a battery heater setting, and it was switched off. So thank you very much, everybody, for steering me on that one.
Yeah.
I'm growing up in front of your very eyes, guys. It's good. So I know there's been quite a few issues there, and there's been quite a few issues in the forum. So we'll leave the issues, if you don't mind, for the time being, and maybe try and pick up on some other things. And if there's time at the end, maybe pick up on one or two things that have come in. So, poor Miles, you're getting hammering tonight. It's deliveries time now, Miles. Put on your metal helmet and tell us how deliveries. So some things are coming through okay now.
Yeah, so I went to an MG conference in January, and they gave us a stock update, basically saying MG5, the new facelift one, is available in as little as 2 weeks. They've got plenty of stock at Portbury, so they're coming through very quickly. The MG4 is 12 to 16 weeks, so 3 to 4 months. They had forward orders for 9,000 cars carried over from last year. Having delivered 5,000 up until December, and they plan to register 20,000 more this year. So by my maths, if there's 9,000 orders carried over from last year and they've got 20,000 coming into the UK this year in total, that's only 11,000 more before they've sold out of them coming in 2023. So at the moment they're saying 3 to 4 months, but I think by summer we could be looking at deliveries perhaps going into 2024. Depending on how obviously the economy does and everything.
Well, and these will be ZS ones from 2 years ago. Were they still waiting on?
Well, so those MG4 I was talking about, that the ZS EV, they've stopped taking any further orders.
No orders.
They have 12,000 orders outstanding, but they're only going to get around 9,000 cars this year. So they strongly suggest that customers who are waiting for those cars would want to consider the MG4, MG5 instead, because if they want to get a car in the next 12 months, basically. If they want to hold on for the ZS EV, just be aware it could be, depending when they took their order. I would say if you placed your order prior to July 2022, there's a good chance of you getting the car this year at some point, but I don't know when. If it was after July, there's a chance that it could end up being in 2024 before you get your car. And not that it's particularly relevant here, but HS, FEV and petrol and ZS petrol are around 12 to 16 weeks. So around 3-4 months, and the MG3 is around 12 to 16 weeks as well. MG's targets to register 70,000 vehicles this year. Last year they did 51,000 cars registered, but they carried over 21,000 orders in total. So if they'd had free stock available last year, they could have registered 72,000 cars. Yeah. As it is, they were still ahead of Skoda, Renault, Honda, and various other very large manufacturers in the UK registrations in 2022. So they have got. I mean, all manufacturers have challenges, and MG sort of said, some of the challenges that they can see is increasing material costs. The costs of batteries have been volatile due to the cost of raw materials. The costs of steel and aluminium and all those things that they used to build cars with have also increased. There's 10, 12, 15, depending on who you listen to, percent inflation at the moment in the UK. That's going all around the world, and those increasing material costs are having a material effect on the total cost of building the cars. Obviously, there's interest rate increases. The interest rate's gone up again, hasn't it, this last week to 4%. So the economic environment is a challenge this year that we know about, and logistics as well. One way that MG's actually managed to get cars across this year that they couldn't before is they've actually been sending cars across in container rather than roll on, roll off. So they've only been, due to the lack of roll on, roll off boat availability, they've actually been sending cars across in 2 per container, which is horrendously expensive, and logistic wise is obviously very time consuming to actually load these vehicles on, strap them down into a container, load them, and take them that way. And they've been having to go to Felixstowe rather than to Portbury because of that. but then they've got to transport them from Felixstowe to Portbury, which is where the prep centre is. So that's caused them further issues as well, but it is at least a way of them getting cars across here. And the opportunities that they've got are it's still one of the best value for money products in the EV marketplace. They do have stock available for some of the brands, at least, some of the models, and also brand identity. MG's celebrating 100 years of MG this year, so MG themselves have been making a lot of noise about that in the press, no doubt, and it is still a recognised name, even though underneath it is effectively a Chinese company. The MG brand does still have a warm place in many people's hearts, particularly in the UK.
True.
Yeah, and the couple of years since I've been on the podcast, I remember one of the early days we were speaking about, do you wave to other MG drivers as you see them? You get repetitive. If you were doing that now, there's so many MGs on the road.
They're everywhere, all over the place, everywhere.
But I still have problems. Is that a ZS? Is that an HS?
Yeah.
What's coming? And
they look similar.
Is it a petrol one or is it an electric one? Yeah.
Other things of limited probably interest to people on the podcast, but it's worth mentioning. The HS model has got a £500 test voucher campaign running at the moment. So if you're in the market for an HS plug-in hybrid, you can get an extra £500 off just by taking a test drive, which you do anyway. If you're buying one, and there will be a new facelifted HS coming later in the year. So the £500 test drive campaign is basically to try and run through that stock.
Old stock, yeah.
It is just a light facelift, though. It's an external facelift. There isn't any changes to drivetrain or anything like that coming.
Miles, a quick question, if you don't mind. How do you see the ratio of EVs to petrol diesel? How's that over a monthly? Is that changing much?
So nationally, across all manufacturers, EV accounted for, I think it was 16% of the marketplace last year total.
That's right, something like that.
And if you include all electrified models, including hybrids and plug-in hybrids and mild hybrids and all that sort of stuff, I think it's about 55%. So the electrified models are going up. We had 260,000 EVs sold in total last year, which is great. It's also an issue for people because they only added about 3,000 rapid chargers last year. So I think that's the biggest issue we've got at the moment, and it's a conversation that seems to be having more and more often, is that people that have bought EVs actually are finding, even though they had them a few years, are finding it harder now than it was 3 years ago to charge their car because of the competition with the rapid chargers.
Yeah, definitely.
And so the government has to sort that out. I don't know if that new department they've created today and put Grant Chaps in charge of is going to do anything about it, but it would be, hopefully they'll do something. The HS is only envisaged that it will run for another 12 months after the facelift, and it's due to be replaced by a new vehicle in 2024, which it will probably be a new version of Marvel R.
Marvel R, yeah.
At that point, but it would be a different Marvel R to what's currently sold in Germany and everywhere else. They talked about the MG4 dual motor all-wheel drive version. That'll be coming at some point this year. Obviously, we've seen a lot of the images from China on that, with the green car with the orange calipers and so on. I don't know if green's going to come as a model. I don't think we're going to get a glass roof either. And visually, it looks very similar to the normal MG4. There's just bigger brakes, 18-inch alloy wheels, and the performance of the model that they're selling them in China is 180 kilowatt rear motor, 150 kilowatt front motor. So that gives you a total of 330 kilowatts, which is 444 brake horsepower, and 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds with launch control as standard. So to give some context, that's similar performance to a Mercedes AMG A45. That's 421 brake horsepower and does 0 to 62 in 3.9 seconds, but costs £63,000. So I think if the MG haven't mentioned any pricing to us at all in the newspapers, in Auto Express and so on, they've been handing about a figure of 35 to 40,000, which seems reasonable as an uplift from the standard trophy. If it is around that sort of price range, I think it should be a bit of a bargain, really, because size-wise, it's very similar to the Mercedes. Obviously, it's electric as well. And then the MG Cyberster, which worth saying with all of these things, our camera phones were completely covered. We couldn't take any photos, obviously. But the spy shots that people have posted from China recently of the MGC, which if we're able to get pulled up, oh yes, he's got them on screen already. It basically looks like that. So the car that they showed us looks an awful lot like that, with powered butterfly doors on the one that they showed us. So yeah, the car didn't have the yoke. Well, we couldn't see the steering wheel. We were a distance. We only saw the exterior of the vehicle, but it had a power hood and power opening doors, and looked quite cool, to be honest. So yeah, that shares similar underpinnings to the MG4 because it's the new
Chassis.
The new chassis, yeah, the new MSP modular scalable platform. So it'll allow both rear-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. No news on battery sizes. We should get more news from April because the official launch will be at the Shanghai Motor Show, 17th to the 27th of April. We're hoping it should be on sale in the UK by the end of this year, just in time for winter, which is obviously when everybody wants to buy a convertible.
Any some price, Miles?
No, none whatsoever. It's not going to be a cheap car. It's going to be a new Halo car. So I wouldn't be surprised if it started with 50. To be honest,
yeah.
I don't see it being a shit. I might be surprised. They might do an entry level version or something, but I don't know. I would be surprised. I think it's going to be a Halo car. I think if we look at the pricing of the ZS now is up to sort of £36,000. I think that the performance version of the MG4 is likely to be towards 40. They might start it at 40, but I think it's going to be high 40s probably.
Yeah.
And I think it can probably withstand that because there's nothing else really on the market that will do that. I'm just looking back, sorry, at the comments, just see if there's anything I've missed. Mark says, our finance agreements agreed on older interest rates being honoured now with the long delivery times? No. If you haven't got a signed finance agreement, which you usually only do about a week or two before you actually get the car, then the finance rate isn't guaranteed. And that part of that's due to the fact that, obviously, as you can see, the government keeps putting, or the Bank of England keeps putting up the base rate, which materially affects the cost of the thing. And if you're looking at a car with a 6 to 12 month or more lead time, they're not able to hold those rates.
That's the same anywhere you go, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And in fact,
an MG thing.
Yeah, and MG actually on the ZS aren't guaranteeing the old list prices for the car either. So if you placed an order when the car was 30,000 and it had a grant against it or whatever, and now it's 32,000 with no grant, well, if the grant's expired because the government only gave you 12 months, and that's all they can do, which is one of the reasons again why they're suggesting people speak to their dealer. Well, the dealer speaks to the customer ideally, and that they say, look, this is the status about the car. We can't guarantee that it's going to be the same price as what you wanted before. The APR is going to go up as well. I do think that potentially you need to look at a different car. You need to speak to your dealer and see. They might still be able to. Depending when you place the order, there may be some points at which they can. If you were to get the car this next week, they may be able to pull a finance offer from last quarter. But if it's if you put your order on the 1st of October and you're not going to get your car till January next year, you're not going to be holding your APR for that long.
That must mean for financial services that he's got to the end of that.
I think that was, yeah. Miles, when can you order the twin motor MG4? Not a clue. I suppose MG is going to let us know once they've unveiled it to the press properly.
I see a good note there asking about spare parts, availability of spare parts. I suppose because they're rapidly building as many cars as they can, spare parts are.
Per person as they come by.
Uh-huh.
I think the issue is that I think that spare parts are an issue in the industry generally. Nissan, Aria, mine had a screen issue where basically it's got two screens in the car. One's for the navigation, one's for like your speed and everything. The one which gives you your speed and everything like that, the one that's really useful on a day-to-day basis, you might say you can't really drive the car without it, went completely blank, and required a replacement screen. And that took a few weeks to come in. And that's, with a fairly major manufacturer. I know the car itself's not made in Sunderland, but they do have a very, very large factory in Sunderland for Nissan. So yeah. What's the thing? Jeff Willis says, "What's the current wait time to bind a phone to MG at the moment via the iSmart app? I initiated mine on Saturday the 4th, and there's still no connection." Jeff, can you ping me a direct message or send me an email on that? I'll have a look and speak to MG and see if it's what's gone on. It shouldn't take more than about 3 minutes to bind your car to the app. It's a fairly instant process.
I've got that problem, Miles. I can't bind my car. I've got the 4. The 4 binds no problem. No problem with the 4, but the 5, the new 5, can't get it on.
Does it give you the actual QR code?
It's not giving me. I put my telephone number in, and then it asks me for a verification code, which I get from the QR code, which is on screen. But then I put the camera on it to set the picture, and it doesn't send me a verification code. I've tried it umpteen times. I can't get it.
No, the verification code should be sent to via text message to your mobile phone.
Yeah, I know.
No, without scanning the QR code though. What it should be, you get the way you log in with your mobile number.
Yeah.
You put your mobile number in and your password.
Yeah.
And then it says we will send you a verification code to your phone.
Yeah.
That should come as a text message to your phone without you doing anything else.
It doesn't come.
Right, okay.
Don't get it.
When you put your mobile number in, you have definitely removed the first 0.
Yes.
You've got an
existing. Yeah, you don't put it in.
Account as for MG4.
Now hang on, you've just said something there that I've not looked at. I might be wrong on that. It comes up with 4 automatically. Just choose which country.
Yeah.
Have I been putting the 0 in?
Yeah, if you are, then that
I'll look at that tomorrow. Thank you for that, Miles. I'll look at that tomorrow.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
If you've got any problems, Les, just give us a shout. Send me a message.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. No problem. Thank you.
I have had quite a few people with issues with iSmart. If it's coming up as already bound, but before you've bound anything, send me an email and I'll check on MG system. I need to know the VIN number for the car, and I'll send that through to MG, and then they'll let me know if it's showing as bound or not already.
Okay.
If they're unable to get past the login stage like Les is suggesting, then again, give me a shout. Usually it's that you've not done it with that. You've put that 0 and it doesn't need it, or it can't work with it.
I'll have a look at that tomorrow. I can't remember.
And then what was the other thing?
It's almost like announcing the birth of a new child. But see, Steve Green said his steering column fixed.
Has he got his fixed?
He's got it done.
There he is.
Congratulations, Steve. Well done.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good if he's got it done. That's the main thing.
That's good. Well, yeah. So, if anyone's got any issues with iSmart, I know that people do have issues with iSmart, and I know that some of the things that I'm telling people to do, like for example, don't put the initial 0 on the phone number, aren't obvious and shouldn't be needed, but it is unfortunately needed. So, if you've got any issues, if you send me a message, I'll try and sort it out. I'm usually quite quick. The only thing I will say is I go away this weekend for a week's holiday abroad, and I'm not going to be intending on replying to anybody on the forum.
No.
Emails in the meantime. So if you don't get a reply if you get my out of office, then you know why.
Yeah, understood, Miles. Understood.
Because you're out of office. And again, I think looking at some of the comments there, great credit to Miles. He comes on to these podcasts as an enthusiast.
Yeah. Absolutely, I've said this.
Of MG, nor is he responsible for everything in MG. So we greatly appreciate all you give us, Miles. And there's one or two comments going, "Oh, what's happening here, Miles?" As if you are going to sort out. We know secretly you do, but
I do try my best. But the thing is, I mean, with the iSmart thing, the only reason I can do that is because I've got a good relationship with one of the engineers at Longbridge, and he replies to my email. So that's how I can get that sorted. So I know that there's frustration that some people are like, "Oh, you know, I've been on to my dealer 3 times and they've not been able to sort it. I emailed you once and suddenly it's fixed. Why couldn't they do it?" And it's literally because they have to go. They're going through the systems that MG's provided for them, whereas I'm just going around the system and just emailing the guy that I know who's got the system. So,
I've said this.
I don't do anything sort of. I'm not doing anything special. It's just sometimes it's more a case of who you know than what.
That's right. Yeah, than what you know. Yeah. I wrote it on the forum last week that he's not just a dealer in the MG trade, in the MG motor industry. He's also an enthusiast about motor cars, especially EVs. I wrote that last week, and we thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Thank you.
So now the last topic just occurred to me earlier on in the week. And like Vince, I've got the new ZS, the long range version, which I absolutely love. I know I've said that in a couple of podcasts before. But my previous ZS, the old version, I had the problem of the battery not computing that it was filling up properly, and then I was getting a depleted full charge. And Miles greatly helped by saying, "Yeah, what you've got to do is put the car onto 100% and leave it there, and the battery will zero and
equalize."
So I was thinking, I rarely put the car onto 100% unless I'm going a long journey now, because it's obviously better just to be driving around the town and things at a maximum 80% anyway. I'm thinking, am I doing myself a disservice? Do I need to balance every now and then? And then I thought, well, I'm speaking to Miles tomorrow. I will float that question past him. But then, Lex, we were speaking earlier, you've got one or two things going on about battery.
Yeah, this balancing thing. I mean, there was a chap the other week. There's a couple of people actually the other week was all about they couldn't see where the balance charge was coming with the Zappy, and it's not just the Zappy. There's others as well, but the Zappy in particular was pointed out that they can't see it happening. And what the problem was is you've got to charge to 100%. And if you're doing what you was doing and setting your timer to cut off at 80%, the battery will never get to 100%, so it can't balance. It's got to go to 100% to do the balance. And what the Zappy does, and I think the other does, the good thing about the Zappy is you can actually see it on the screen and on the app. It'll charge at 7.2% or whatever, 7.2 kilowatts for whatever amount of time it needs to do. And then at the end of that, it'll drop down to around about 300 or 350 watts. And it might stay there for 20 minutes, half an hour, 2 hours. It depends how long it is since it's been done. The car controls the balancing. You have no control over the balancing whatsoever. And the Zappy has no control over the balancing whatsoever. It's the car that decides, right, I'm going to stop charging now and I'm going to balance for the next half an hour or hour. And then it switches off. You as the driver, as the owner, have no control over the balancing of the battery. That's my understanding of it anyway. And that's the way I've been doing it ever since I've had the Zappy. I just bang it on, let it run at 100%. Once it gets to 100%, it does the balance if it needs to. It doesn't do it every time. Now, there's a little difference here now in the respect of I've been running an MG5 Mark 1 for just over 18 months, which I've recently got sold off and got rid of. And now I've got the Trophy. Now, the Trophy Mark 2 seems to be a little bit different in some way, Miles. I don't know whether you know anything about this or not, but it'll charge at 100 to 100%. And then it doesn't balance. Now, it's new. It's not done 1,000 miles yet. So maybe it doesn't need to balance yet. I'm not sure. But I also noticed the same scenario with the MG4. In the respect of it's got the 50 kilowatt battery, which is the LFP, is it? I think it is. I think it's called.
LFP,
that doesn't seem to do a balance the way that my old MG5 did. It doesn't seem to do it. It goes to 100% and it stops. It doesn't seem to be balancing like my old MG5 did. And the new MG5, it's, as I say, it's got less than 1,000 miles on it yet, so it probably doesn't need to balance at the moment. But other than that, I can't see what else you can do. You can't control the balance charge. If the car needs it, it'll do it. If it doesn't need it, it doesn't do it. Simple as that.
Well, there is a couple of things there, Les, is that the car can't balance it unless you've actually got it charged to 100% for a start. And then secondly, you've got to leave it plugged in and the charger switched on.
Yep.
So that is the thing you can do about it. And as the manual says, you should do this a regular period. But the chemistry in the battery of the 51 kilowatt, whether it's the ZS or whether it is the 4, it's a different chemistry.
Yeah, I know that, Barry.
And that has the battery management system manages it differently because it should be regularly charged to 100% and then stop.
Yeah.
And it will need at some point to do some balancing, but it won't be as frequent because that's the way the chemistry works.
Well, thank you for that. I didn't know that.
It's down to the chemistry and the physics involved.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's too involved for this
vehicle.
forum to go through that.
It's the car that decides if it needs to do it or not. You can't do it. You can't say balance. It won't happen. You don't press another button for it to balance.
The tools to be able to balance. One thing I would say, Les, about balancing on the LFP batteries is that, and on lithium ion, is that with the if the battery is not balanced, if it is out of balance, if it's not had a balanced charge, then it requires one. The problem we saw with the original ZS, where the balancing wasn't working, where basically the cells were draining the opposite way, so rather than the resistance working so that the higher cells were all put resistors and then the other ones were brought up to meet it, effectively what was happening was it was putting resistors on the lower ones and the higher ones were going higher, and the difference was getting massive between them. If you don't do a balance charge, the battery BMS finds it really hard to calculate range. It finds it really hard to accurately predict how much remaining capacity it's got. And I've seen a few comments from people when temperatures have been cold, where their MG4, I think it has been primarily SE, has been left overnight, and they left it with 71%, and they've come back and it's reporting 45% the next day. And they're saying, it seems to have had a massive loss of capacity. I don't think it has. I think it's just that the battery's out of balance. And I think that if one of the problems, and Barry, correct me if I'm wrong here, is that LFP batteries basically have a much smaller voltage difference across them between fully charged and discharged.
Yeah.
So if you imagine trying to do a calculation where you're talking about hundredths of a volt rather than tenths of a volt as being the difference, it means that they're a lot more susceptible to making miscalculations based on, if it looks at the battery and goes, okay, well, looking at it now, I see that most of the cells are at 3.876 volts or whatever, but before when the system was warm, I was seeing it as 4.879 or whatever, and that gave a different calculation out. So balance charges are important because it's where the BMS effectively does its reset from as well. So once it knows its total capacity and it does that balance and they're all level, it can then more accurately calculate everything else. So
that's where it gets a reference point by when it's been at that point. And as Miles is absolutely right that the difference is the old lithium ion, with the nickel cadmium mix in there. The difference between a fully charged battery and when the car reports 0 is a much wider range of voltage than you get with LFP. So an LFP doesn't actually change voltage very much, but as you put more energy into it, it stays very, very close to it. So it's very, very difficult for the system to predict the temperature, the voltage, and that will be affected. The voltage of a battery is affected by temperature. Whether you're charging or discharging it is affected. I remember as a kid, I'd have my toys at Christmas and run the batteries down low, and then my dad would take the batteries out of the toy car, stand them near the fire, they'd warm up a bit, you put them in, and they'd have a bit more go.
That's right.
And that's purely because what you've done when you raise the temperature, the chemistry works higher. So the optimum temperature, if the car's been sat there for a long while, will go down. The energy hasn't gone anywhere. It's still in the battery, even though it's gone from showing 75% down to 45%. It hasn't gone anywhere. When that battery comes back up to the original temperature, then the range will show as great a range again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it doesn't help you at 7 o'clock in the morning when you think that you had enough range. And
No,
you
it frightens the bejeebers out of you. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, this is why, again, with LFP batteries as well. I mean, I think I'm right in saying they last for about 3,000 cycles, which is about 500,000 miles. So it's in terms of sort of, degradation, you don't have to worry about it with LFP. So if you've got a charger at home, plug it in every night.
Let it do it.
You're not going to have any issues with it at all.
Yeah.
If you don't have a home charger and you're reliant on public charging, just be aware that it would be useful if you could find a 7 kilowatt AC charger somewhere to charge it at some point, not just relying on rapid charges.
Yeah. Unless, of course, you're an anti-EV journalist who keep pointing out just how bad your battery degrades. And Vince, you've had your ZS for a year now. Are you balancing okay?
Yeah, so I've of the last 2 ZSs, I've had over 3 years now of ZS experience, and I still charge on a granny charger. I drive 50 miles a day most of the time, so I just plug in on the granny charger and it's all night long. And on the new model now, I only charge it to 80%, same as you. And once a month, I charge it to 100%. But
That's right.
I know I'm going to drive the next day anyway, so it's not an issue. It's not going to stand there at 100% for a week in Heathrow car park.
No.
So it's not a hassle just letting it charge to 100% once a month. But regularly, I just charge it to 80% because that's all I need. If I know I'm going to see my mum in Wales on a 200-mile journey, I'll charge it up to
100%. And let it balance. Yeah, I agree with that, Vince. Yeah, that's what you should be doing. Yeah. The actual handbook tells you that, to charge it as normal daily, and then every month, I think it says it's about once a month to charge it fully and let it balance.
Yeah, I say it sort of depends on your mileage. If you're doing
it does.
If you're doing a low mileage, I'd say once a month minimum, or if you're doing quite a high mileage and you're doing a lot of rapid charge, I'd say every sort of 10 charges you do with doing a balance.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Yeah,
I would agree with that.
Barry, going back to your point, there was one day last week, it was particularly cold. Another breaking news story in Inverness. And I had something like 240 miles when I turned the car on. And I don't have a big drive. I don't live in a castle. But by the time I actually started the car moving, I was down to something like 238 or something. I thought, where the hell did that mileage go? But just...
Did you switch the heater on, Dave?
Oh, good.
No, you are. That's gonna cost you a couple of cents straight away. That's gonna knock it down.
But that's the difference between driving. I hope Vince agrees. So driving the new long range versus the old one. The amount of times I had to drive the old version with the heater off, etc. I don't even. And I was a huge advocate for driving in eco. I'd hardly put it in eco now. Just leave it normal and come on, heat. Waft through the car.
I completely agree. So, if what I have noticed in the cold here is when I start it up in the morning, for instance, let's just take an arbitrary number, it reads 260 miles or something like that, and you start driving in the first 5 miles, it will go down quite a bit.
Yeah.
The battery pack warms up because you're driving and regenerating. Actually, the rate that it's going down slows down, and it actually might even stay
lifting
for a while. Well, I've never seen it lift, but I've seen it stay steady and going down slower. So by the time I finished my 200-mile journey to Wales, the actual initial, when I first switched it on, range prediction, it's been actually spot on, more or less, at the other end.
Yeah.
So
it is pretty good.
The cabin's heated up as well by then, because on a short journey, the cabin heats up at the beginning, and all you're doing for the rest of the journey is maintaining that heat in the cabin. So it's less draw on the heater as well.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
just to clarify, Vince's using granny charger, that is good enough to get a balance, isn't it?
Yeah, a balance charger
Yeah.
is an AC charger.
Just do it.
So,
Yeah, it's just AC.
uh,
About 300 watts,
the
300,
rapid
350
charger.
watts or so.
Yeah, you cannot get a balanced charger when you're charging from a rapid charger because that's going in on
No,
the DC
DC,
circuit.
that's DC, yeah.
It's a bit like if you've got a battery, a torch with 3 batteries in it, and the rapid charge is charging from either end of the stack of batteries. But when you charge with AC, the charger in the car still does that to the point when it finishes its charge, and then when it goes into its balance charge, it's like having an individual wire to each of the batteries. So it can adjust the voltage for each of the batteries to make them equalize.
Mhm.
You know, you'll often see, like, if you've got a battery, appliance that takes replaceable batteries, it tells you not to put batteries in of mixed types or mixed charges. It's for the same reason that what will happen if they're at the wrong voltage, if they're all at different voltages,
It will do
the
it.
best ones will try to recharge the bad ones. And sometimes that, if they're not rechargeables, it will cause a battery to leak or go. If they are rechargeable, you're just wasting the charge of the good ones into the bad ones. And so so the overall brightness of your torch is going to be dimmer. So it hasn't got, in total, hasn't got enough effective power. So when you do your balance charge, it makes all the batteries the same so they can all work and they're not fighting against one another. And it just needs to be done periodically. No 2 battery cells are identical. Every time they make a battery cell, every battery cell will be slightly different. So over time, those differences accumulate. And that's why you need to do a balance charge to equalize things out.
Just to get back at you, Barry, last week when it was 10 degrees in Inverness and -4 on Riselet, I did think, oh, I should really be packing warm clothes and sending it to my pals down there. Must be hellish. Anyway, guys, we're just noticing the time. It's by the time we started looking at winding things up. Unless anybody's got anything to dive in with, any comments we haven't covered yet, or anything you've seen on the comments. So one thing I would like to say is, we appreciate donations, and Luciano Lopez Lima has been listening in tonight and has kindly donated a couple of euros. Thank you, Luciano. That's very good. He's asked a question. Some predictions for a 443 HP version of the MG4 in Europe. Miles, your knowledge in Europe MG4s, how's that looking?
We're definitely getting the UK. The MG4 all-wheel drive is definitely coming to the UK this year. European lead times may vary depending on how their market is running. It's obviously we haven't been given any information about that ourselves. I know in the UK we're going to get the all-wheel drive MG4 this year.
Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe we should do a European special one of these times, but we could go over there for a bit of field study first, just to research.
3 weeks.
Okay, guys, we'll wind up on that. A few final closing comments. We mentioned this before, but our good forum member Sloucher, who I see's been chatting away today as well, is printing and posting MG4 manuals for those who need one. He's prepared to do that at cost. Thank you very much, Sloucher. There's a link on the forum thread for more information, so please follow that up if you are interested in that. We know that MG dealers listen in from time to time, and again, we're speaking about donations. So if anybody wants to sponsor the forum, possibly, or connect with it directly with the community, we would be glad to hear from you. So
if anyone wants to take over my job, that'd be great. If anyone wants to take, I can go on holiday sometimes and we'll have some fill-ins. That'd be great.
Who would we throw all the pelters at, though, Miles?
I think I actually met somebody at the MG conference. One of the dealers from Northern Ireland, and he says, "You're Miles, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "Oh, I watch you on the podcast all the time." He says, "It's really good, that." He says, "I found out loads of stuff, but I didn't know from MG."
That does not surprise me in the least.
So if any of those kind sponsors want to get in touch with Stuart at admin@mgevs.com, that would be very much appreciated. And again, I've mentioned previously that we have got our sister site for the Aura electric cars and the Aura Cat, which is available now. So please sign up for auraevs.com and get updates from that. So that's about it for this week, everybody. My thanks go to Barry.
Nice to be back on the forum, everybody, and hope to see you next time.
Good, good. Vince, great seeing you again.
Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Les. Thanks, Barry, and especially Miles. Thanks for all the effort you put in. Cheers. And you, Stuart.
Let's not all big up Miles, for goodness sakes. And Les, good seeing you again as ever.
Thanks, Dave. Nice to see everybody again. Happy New Year.
Miles.
Before.
And Miles, as ever, thank you very much, Miles. We couldn't do it without you.
No, I wish you would sometimes. No, it's thanks, guys. I mean, it's good. Sometimes, I mean, I only see the issues that customers bring to our dealership sometimes, and it's good that we get a heads up from the forum, because sometimes we know we're pre-warned as to what we might see. Mm-hmm. Hopefully, we get some of these answers. It might just take a little while because of the hoops we have to jump through for MG UK, but we do try and help if we can.
Hey, I asked a pretty technical question tonight, so you never know. I
was well impressed, Dave. I thought you must have read it somewhere.
So everybody, if you found the podcast useful, please click on the like button. And also, if you subscribe and click on the notification bell, you'll get notified the next time we go live, which is particularly useful as we're trying to find out which day everybody likes, etc. So try and pitch that correctly. We'll be back soon. Please keep us updated on any items you wish to discuss. And we're also really keen, and I know we've had some German and Spanish or whatever, but we're really keen to rekindle our links with Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and Asia. So any of the owners based in any of those areas, please, we'd really love you to come on. And as ever, we always say we'd really love if we could have some female owners as well. I still remember that really good comment about charging points in industrial estates aren't very welcoming for female owners, and having that input's always great. So thanks very much, everybody. See you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.